It looks so good on paper.
A little too tall.
But also a little bit of
I really thought
joy.
it would land in Lotus. That laughter, you were great compassion. It's all that was about.
Just lost an invitation to go skiing.
Okay, please say Chima.
Dam,
Laksam Namdak.
Laksam Namdak,
Ni.
Ni,
Dunchik.
Dunchik.
Okay. So we're on to this idea of personal responsibility. So Chima means protecting, compassion. Dang means on. Laksam Namdak is this idea of personal responsibility. Ni means two, and Dunchik means one and the same. So these two ideas, these two states of mind, great compassion, wanting to protect people from pain and having personal responsibility for their liberation, they're exactly the same thing. So taking personal responsibility to remove other people's suffering and having compassion for them, the same thing. So this idea of personal responsibility is something that extremely important. It's basically saying I'm going to make sure that everyone else is free of suffering. And the personal responsibility component is it doesn't matter what anybody else does. You know, in our society, in our culture, we tend to want to have support. You know, I'll do it if everybody else is doing it. You know, if I can get a group together and a few people to help me out, I'll do it. Right? This is not Laksam Namdak. This is not personal responsibility. Personal responsibility says it doesn't matter what anybody else is doing. It doesn't matter if people tell me I'm crazy. It doesn't matter if people support me. It doesn't matter if people oppose me. It doesn't matter if people think I'm crazy. I'm going to do it because it's important, because it has to be done. I'm going to study the teachings. I'm going to practice the path. I'm going to master it. I'm going to make sure people don't suffer, and I don't care if nobody helps. You know, I'm going to enter the secret teachings. I'm going to get the goals. I'm going to become enlightened. And I don't care if people tell me I'm crazy. I don't care if people don't understand. I'm going to do it. So it's a state of mind which just says I'm going for it. It's me, myself, and I, irrespective of anybody else, and I'm just going to do it. You know, nobody's going to come up to you and say, "God, you're smart that you gave all your money away," or that you gave. Isn't it wonderful that you give 10% of your income, you know, to charity? Aren't you a great guy? I mean, it's not how it works, right? People don't come running up to you and say, "You were so kind to them. You're such a wonderful person. You know, you let them get ahead." I mean, no, it's not what our world is like, not what our society is like, right? And the more we practice, and the more seriously we practice, and the closer we get to our goals, the more crap we encounter typically. And it's not an accident, right? The further we go and the deeper we go, it seems like the less support we get, and the more criticism we get. Nobody seems to be interested. Nobody seems to care. And this personal responsibility has to just be, I'm going to do it myself. Doesn't matter if people are affirming me or not. I'm going to do it on my own. So some kind of steadfast perseverance, right? I'm going to help everybody else that's suffering, even if I'm the only one doing it. Even if nobody else is on board, even if nobody else appreciates it, even if nobody acknowledges me, even if they criticize me for helping, I'm still going to help everybody. I'm going to remove suffering, right? I'll pay for the classes. You know, I'll go out of my way. I'll do whatever it takes. And it takes some kind of strength. It takes some kind of real chutzpah to deal with the obstacles and not be discouraged. And there are obstacles. There's a story of a Buddhist saint in the scriptures who was a high practitioner, and he met a guy on the road, and he said, "You know, I went your Bodhisattva, right?" He said, "Yeah." So give me your eyeball. And so it wasn't painful to him, so he took out his eyeball and he gave it to him. And so then the guy said, "You know, you handed it to me with the wrong hand," and he just threw it on the ground and smashed it. And he said, "Hank, give me your other eyeball with the correct hand." You know? and so then he became discouraged. The Bodhisattva became discouraged at that point. He said, "You know, this is the people. You know, what's wrong with people? People are unbelievable. I'm serving people day and night. I'm helping them. I'm doing everything I can. I'm being good, I'm being virtuous, every single thing I do is to benefit other people, and they're complaining that I like serving them with the wrong hand. They're complaining about, it's crazy, it's insane. And so, he got discouraged at that moment, and he lost a lot of mileage because of the obstacle that arose, and his inability to surmount it. And the point to me is not that he should have plucked out his other eyeball. The point, it goes back to what Master Shantideva was saying, in my opinion, which is you work at the level of capacity that you can. Your carrots and potatoes, or your eyeball, or whatever it is. If you're giving carrots and potato, be able to deal with the obstacles that arise when you're giving carrots and potato, and don't be defeated by them. If you're going to work at the level of giving your eyeball, then be able to deal with the obstacles that arise at the level of giving your eyeball, and don't be defeated by them. Work at the level that you can, and don't lose your courage and your feeling of personal responsibility along the way. Because there will be obstacles, and there will be interferences, and if you can work through it, and if you can get through it, then you have significant breakthroughs. The scriptures say that this saint, he lost his bodhisattva attitude there in that moment, and if he was able to persevere for another 5 minutes, he would have achieved tremendous realizations, but he couldn't work through the obstacle with correct view and the rest.
Question, can you comment on the sort of balance of martyrdom? It seems to kind of go back to the self-care question, but
Well, in what sense comment on martyrdom?
I mean, how to,
is it a good thing?
No, how to by whatever means necessary, but serve by whatever means necessary, but kind of steer away from a way that it's not helpful, which I would say that a martyrdom wouldn't be helpful.
Yeah, I'm not sure exactly the definition of martyrdom or what it means, but I presume it means something like you sacrifice yourself for others, as you kill yourself, or you sacrifice yourself for others, something like that. Is the idea. So I have to say, first of all, that this human body is precious, and it's rare upon rare in terms of the countless trillions upon trillions of sentient beings. Very few of them are humans and have the ability to get enlightened in one lifetime. So doing anything to damage this body and mind is a very big negativity, and certainly a big no-no from a Buddhist perspective. So it's very much not a good thing to kill oneself for any reason. How far does one go to help others? What is the balance? How does one find balance between sacrificing oneself and helping others? The first thing to say, I think, or an important point is one should never regret one's virtues. And typically that includes even in the bardo and even in the intermediate state. If you do something to help others and you regret it later, it's a very heavy negativity. So, again, we should be working at our level of capacity. The guy, I struggle with it. I offered to do something, and it was, how should I say, cost me a lot, continues to cost me a lot, and I struggle with feeling a resentment of man, that's costing me thousands of dollars every month, and trying not to feel bad about it and trying not to resent it. It's hard. It's like that with everything. So you've got to work at your own level, and it's not beneficial. Say it differently. It's about karma, right? So motivation is a major component of karma. If one has the motivation to help others, that's the major component of karma. If one goes and helps one person or 3 people or 10 people and collects that karma, how does that fit into the bigger picture? If you cripple yourself or shorten your life or handicap yourself in some way to help 10 people, how many other people are you not helping in the future because of disadvantaging yourself in that way? So from a Buddhist perspective, highest practice and highest path is getting enlightened to benefit countless trillions upon trillions of sentient beings, right? So yes, it's great to help 1 or 10 or 1,000 or 10,000 beings. most of us don't have that opportunity. You know, I mean, let alone to martyr oneself to make a point or to make a philosophical statement or something like that, which is of an intangible benefit. So I don't really have anything definitive to say about it other than you have to put it in the karmic context and do everything possible to protect his body and mind and life and benefit people through skillful means and, you know, and just intelligent choices. I don't know if that helps. You know, the Dhammapada Sutra says, look, if you practice this path, if you study emptiness, the bad karma that you've collected in the past will ripen more quickly upon you. It serves to ripen and accelerate negative karma, right? The more one practices, the more one studies emptiness, the deeper one goes. And it ripens in a much, much, much less severe form than it would have otherwise if one had not engaged in this, right? So bad things will happen. I mean, most people don't know if demons really exist or not, or that demons exist or not. In our culture, in our society, they tend to be considered superstitious, like a guy with horns and a tail and a little spear and, you know, a red cape or something, you know. But from a Buddhist perspective, that's not the case at all. There are demons, and they're extremely intelligent and sophisticated and very, very harmful. And in one's spiritual path and practice as one advances, you will run into them. You know, you will meet some, you know, before you reach the end of the path. And you have to be able to overcome those obstacles and have the capacity to deal with these things. And that sense of Flaksan Namdak, personal responsibility. I'm going to do this no matter what. I'm going to deal with whatever comes. It doesn't matter what it is. It's extremely important. You know, and when those obstacles come, and when those demons come, then you have to have that sense of personal responsibility and just, you know, power through it and kick butt and not be defeated. So, very end of the book, Master Shantideva starts to then get into another idea, and he starts to talk about. I mean, if you recall, at the end of the chapter, he's flying off in the sky, right? So this is the point at which he's flying off in the sky, and he hasn't yet talked about the perfection of giving. If you remember, we went through the other chapters and the other courses, and we covered the other 5 perfections, right? And he didn't get into the perfection of giving yet. So here at the very end, he starts to get into the perfection of giving, and his last action is he saves the most precious thing for last, right? He wants to have something to give, and so he's just finished composing the entire text, right? He's finished composing the guide, and now he's giving the guide, and he's offering the guide as the perfection of giving. And so this is at the very end of the 9th chapter, is where he presents the perfection of giving and giving away the good deed of doing this book. Right? So he's finished the book, and he's taught it, he's presented it, and he's offered it to his monastery. So, and he wants to give away the good deed of composing the text, and he wants to dedicate the virtue. So he covers the perfection of giving by giving away what he just did. So at the beginning of the book wasn't written, he didn't have anything to give. So he waited to the end to cover the perfection of giving. Right? Okay. So, all right. I'm going to skip it today. It's 10 after. Do you mind? No. All right. So, I'll read it just for the blessing. Sakjangi nedupe yenlak bunpe nangsendu gyurpe noa. So this is talking about dedication. It says dedication is a member of the group of 7 things, 7 components that include within them all the crucial points for collecting good karma and removing negative karma. I don't know if you remember the 7-step practice. Does anybody remember the 7-step practice for collecting goodness and purifying negative karma? So this is referring back to that. And this is what we're supposed to do before a meditation session every day. You know, before we engage in meditation, we're collecting virtue and purifying, removing obstacles and purifying negativity so that we can succeed in our meditation practice, right? So what does he have to say about it? All he has to say, all Master Shantideva says about the perfection of giving is that it's included as one of these 7 steps. That dedication is the last of the 7 steps used to collect good energy and dispel bad energy, and it's one of the most important practices. So he shows how to do the perfection of giving through the practice of dedication. He talks about the practice of dedication. He's dedicating what he just did. So there are 2 things. There's dedication and there's a prayer. Please say Noah.
Noah.
Munlam.
Munlam.
Noah means dedication. Munlam means prayer. Munlam it's the name of a prayer that's recited. And Noah means a dedication, like a true dedication from the heart, and it has two main effects, or 2 main elements. What is the difference between dedication and prayer? Any ideas?
Well, dedication is like an offering.
Where I was asking.
Yeah, similarly, if you're dedicating something, you've already finished doing something. You have something there which has happened, which you've engaged in, which you're dedicating. You have some goodness which you're dedicating, right? So you've already collected some goodness, you've engaged in some goodness, and so you're dedicating. It's like putting it in the bank, right? Or tagging it, I suppose you would say in social media terms. But a prayer is an aspiration. It's a supplication or an aspiration. I hope this will happen. May this happen. May this come to pass. Right. So with any virtue at all, important to dedicate it. If you don't dedicate virtue, then it's basically remains dirty good karma. What is dirty good karma? It's a karma which wears out. It's a karma which brings a mixed result. Right. Like a dirty good karma, you give someone money and you get a sandwich or you get something, and it's good for 10 minutes or an hour or 2, and then you're hungry again, right? So that's the effect of dirty good karma. If you dedicate virtue, it has the effect of making it much more powerful and a virtue, and not a dirty good karma that wears out. So the first effect is that it doesn't wear out, especially if you understand the emptiness of the good deed. If you're thinking about the emptiness of the virtue while you're doing it, even more powerful. Like, for example, there's a person sitting here and they're hungry, and I'm going to give them a sandwich, and by the virtue of giving them the sandwich, may I teach them everything they know to achieve, tantric paradise in this life. I dedicate this giving of a sandwich to becoming enlightened in this life and leading them to enlightenment in this life. It becomes a hugely powerful karma, which brings a massive result, as opposed to bringing you a little better sandwich, which is good for a couple of hours of hunger. You see. So every virtue we do, no matter how small it is, very important to dedicate it, very important to think in terms of, may this be a cause for a profound realization, outcome, enlightenment. Right? It's the difference between a very short, temporary, pleasant result and a very powerful, pure, virtuous result that doesn't wear out. If we don't dedicate our virtue, then it's much weaker and it wears out much faster. So Master Shantideva is big upon the idea of dedicating just small things. Most of us don't live a life where we're going to go out and save 10,000 people from being slaughtered or something like that. Most of us live in the realm of small things like holding the door for someone, or being polite to someone, or restraining yourself when they yell at you, or letting their car go first when you're driving, or letting them get in the subway first. The virtues of the normal, ordinary virtues of our lives tend to be fairly small things, right? In the ordinary course of events. And so Master Shantideva is saying, dedicate them. Very important to dedicate. Even very small virtues, when dedicated, bring profound, powerful results. And by dedicating them, they become pure karma, and it doesn't wear out, and it brings a magnitude greater result. So, very important to do that. So, all right, let's see.
Can you talk a little bit why that makes it pure karma?
You know, I can speculate, but it would just be that. I think if you understand the emptiness of the good deed while you're doing it, it makes it hugely powerful. Why? And this is just my personal opinion, not from the scripture. I think understanding that I'm not self-existent, I'm not John from my own side, and they're not a hungry beggar from their own side, and the sandwich is not a sandwich from its own side, and my giving is a form of purity, or a form of goodness, or a form of virtue. And the undertaking, the intention of that, and the undertaking of that, and the completion of that is such that it will change the very nature of reality. Is such that it will change my nature and their nature and the very nature of reality, because things don't exist from their own side. Right? So that's thinking about it correctly with dedication. Right? Has that potential, that impact. Right? Thinking about it in an ordinary form is, there's a smelly, hungry beggar, and I feel sorry for him, and let me go buy him a sandwich because I can, and I have it better from him, and it's the right thing to do, and he won't be hungry for a couple of hours. So you see the difference in the thought process, and you see the difference in the energy, and you see the difference in the karma between the two, right? So there is a very real, meaningful difference between the two approaches, and therefore the result is meaningfully different.
But that's true for giving. Why dedication? Why is dedication?
Well, I think if you take what I just said about seeing the emptiness of the me giving and them as the smelly beggar and the sandwich, and then you add on to that, by doing this, may I create paradise. Well, that bumps it up another level, doesn't it? If you understand that I don't exist as John from my own side, and you understand that they don't exist as a smelly, hungry beggar from their own side, and that the sandwich doesn't exist as a sandwich from its own side. So that's one level of virtue, right? You say, now I understand all that, and now let's turn it all into paradise. See?
Isn't it also similar to the idea of requesting blessings, that a good deed with a dedication kind of ties you into the lineage? Makes you part of what you're requesting blessings from.
I haven't heard a thorough scriptural explanation of it. It's what the scriptures say. That's my understanding of it, and I'm happy. If anyone has any other insights or thoughts to add. It's the difference between to me, it's the difference between a worldly motivation and a higher motivation. Like if my ordinary motivation is, here's a guy and I don't want him to be hungry, that's a goodness. But it's completely worldly. It's completely tied to this human realm and human existence and self-existent view and all the rest. And as opposed to if I'm thinking this undertaking and this activity is tied up with paradise and enlightenment, then it's a different motivation and a different karma and a different result. So that's how I think of it. It's not a scriptural explanation, it's just how I think of it.
John, several courses ago, I can't remember which, I think you were talking about this very thing, and you said, we're consumers of virtue. The very nature of everything that we undertake, God gas, sip of water, the homes that we live in, the beds that we sleep in, we're continually consuming conspicuously.
Yeah.
And the act of dedication flips that, where we turn it into something that perpetuates us out of the sufferings by dedicating. Changes us from consumers to trying to be active in our transformation.
Yeah. Yeah, the idea being that we collect goodness in the past, it ripens upon us as a pleasant experience, goodness, and we devote that to more goodness. We dedicate that and devote that and connect that to more goodness somehow. Right? So, I don't have a definitive answer, but just in my mind, in a broad sense, self-existent human view is a dirty karma. It's ordinary suffering beings that are self-existent that we're working to help, and therefore we get a result for an ordinary suffering being that helps a little bit. It's sort of like produces like, essentially. I'm giving a human help to a self-existent human being, and I'm getting some human help as a self-existent human being from a self-existent whatever. So it's sort of, in a way, perpetuating it on the same level, as opposed to thinking, to my mind, thinking of it with the correct view about the three elements, right? And thinking of it in the context of enlightenment and paradise, especially tantric paradise, then collects a completely different karma, which brings a completely different result. And it's not the same dirty mixed karma. It's a pure, more powerful, higher karma, which comes back to us. And I think that's really the point that they're making. It's just you're collecting a different karma that's bringing a different result.
Thank you.
Okay, so let's see. So, like when we're talking about these things, we're talking about dirty good karma, right? That means it's going to wear out. We want our virtues to be pure. We want them to last. Everything here is empty, including these classes. We're empty. We could be seeing tantric deities in the room. This class is empty. These teachings are empty. Some people will come to this class and will really get it, and will understand it, and will deeply apply these things in practice, and will get the results, and and will escape death and suffering for all time. Other people, come to class to meet people and won't practice so well, or other people come to class and think it's boring and don't come back, right? So the lectures are empty, the books are empty, the stuff could be boring or it could be profound. So a few people will get it, and they'll understand that everything that we've pursued in our lives up to now has been basically suffering and meaningless, and that will just lead to our death. And that if these things are true, I don't have to die, and I can change everything about my life, and I can remove every suffering from my life. All things are possible if they're empty. And everybody here is hearing something different and understanding something different. And some people will get it on a profound level, and some people will think much less of it. You're empty, the teachings are empty, the understanding is empty. A certain percentage of people here will die and go on to another kind of suffering. A certain percentage will die and go to some kind of happiness. And hopefully a certain percentage will practice highest teachings and won't have to die at all, and will go to some kind of paradise in this life. So, the class is empty even in its existence. The class didn't have to exist. It existed because of your virtue and because of our virtue. If we didn't have the virtue, these classes wouldn't be happening, and the virtue is wearing out. It's a very expensive karma. So we have to take the virtue of these classes, and we have to take the virtue of studying emptiness, and we can either enjoy some kind of temporary good result from it, or we can, in some kind of very conscious way, dedicated to becoming enlightened in this life and helping other people. And I think most people feel that helping others is a kind of hassle. Like in an ordinary sense, if you're going to help some smelly homeless guy, it's a hassle. You know, you get like, you touch him and you're like, what got on my hand? I don't know, some kind of, you know, germs and it's just, you know, we think of helping others as potentially a very unpleasant thing. But in Buddhism, that's not the case. In Buddhism, it's the best way to get enlightened. And it happens to be a cause of great bliss. And Master Shantideva calls it a blissful path, the highest bliss, where we're keeping all three sets of our vows and helping other beings all the time. And we reach a point where there's no physical pleasure and no sensual pleasure and no mental pleasure, which is as enjoyable as being a bodhisattva and helping others. And the result of helping others in a serious way is experiencing ultimate pleasure. And so Master Shantideva really emphasizes at this point is no matter how small the good deeds are that we engage in, we have to dedicate them. It doesn't matter if you give candy to a kid or, you know, let somebody go before you on the crosswalk. Any small thing, it's important to think that, you know, I'm dedicating this to becoming enlightened and to ending all suffering everywhere. And Mr. Shantideva says, don't blow the chance. You know, anytime you do anything good, don't produce dirty good karma. Understand the emptiness and dedicate it so that it doesn't wear out and doesn't become dirty good karma. So it says all day long, dedicate everything. And it's an inconceivable effect, really. It's the effect of dedicating every small thing that you do is an inconceivable effect upon your mind. To perhaps further address your question, Hector, if you think about the content of your mind, right? Every thought is raw karma, right? So if we think about the content of our mind, every time we think about virtue, it has an effect on our mind. Every time we think any virtuous thought has an effect on our mind. Anytime we think, I want to be holy, I want to be virtuous, I want to end all suffering everywhere, powerful effect upon our mind, right? As opposed to, I'm hungry, I wonder what I'm going to watch on TV tonight, I wonder what's for dinner. I mean, you see the difference, you can feel the difference in the thought, right? You can feel the difference in the energy of those thoughts and the impact upon the mind of those thoughts. So just thinking the thought, I'm doing this to get enlightened in this lifetime. I'm doing this, I'm letting this guy go before me in the crosswalk so that I can get enlightened and lead them to enlightenment. Huge impact upon the mind, right? So I think, you know, that really addresses why dedication is important, because it has almost an inconceivable effect upon the mind and how the mind functions. So that's my take on it. So he says dedicate everything. So dedication is where you have the raw material to work with, right? You already have the virtue that you're working with, having done something good, right? Like, I don't want to get, you know, a convertible from my virtue. You know, I want to get, you know, a body of light which can never, you know, never suffer in any way, right? Something like that. So, so Munlam is a prayer. It's just kind of a nice question. Don't waste the virtue. Make sure that you get more back than you give away, right? And that's what you were saying, right, Maria? Is you always want to create more virtue than you experience, and dedication is a great way to do that. So it doesn't matter. I mean, you give a few crumbs to a sparrow, you dedicate it to enlightenment, it becomes a profound, powerful thing. You know, you sit and feed the squirrels, dedicate it to your enlightenment and their enlightenment, it becomes a profound, powerful thing. So, you know, the profound karmic results. I mean, you know, it's funny. We tend to think that I have to go sit on my cushion for 3 hours, you know, to get some kind of profound result. Go buy a bag of peanuts and sit in the park and feed the squirrels and think constantly, you know, I'm doing this to become enlightened. It's actually very hard to do if you try it. I mean, you know, when I was preparing class, I was like, oh, this is awesome. I'm going to dedicate, you know. I'm going to dedicate everything. And that's good for about 30 minutes. you know, then you forget, right? This is like, oh, on to the next thing, right? It's the nature of our mind. It's the nature of our lives, right? So, I mean, it's a very profound, powerful thing. And it's a very simple thing, and it's a very easy thing, and it's still hard to do, you know. So, it's habituation. You have to create the habit. It's, you know, it's getting the groove. You know, it's burning the groove, cutting the groove in our habituation and in our mind that says, I'm just going to think like this. I'm just going to train myself to think like this. I mean, if you could just do one thing, if you could just train yourself in one thing, if you could just train yourself to always think, I'm doing this to end all suffering in this life. I mean, if you could do nothing else but to train yourself to think that in response to everything, imagine what your life would be.
I always think about Jesus died for your sins.
That doesn't resonate with me, but what sense do you mean?
Like,
I mean, it's a Christian thing.
I know, I'm just saying, I grew up with that, so it's like, to end all suffering, he's like, I'm doing this to end all suffering.
Well, he did that, like in that Jesus did it, you mean?
Yeah.
I thought you meant like I was supposed to be thinking
Oh,
that.
no. Jesus died for your sins.
Yeah.
Every action, or like, say for instance, you're picking up the cup. How do you dedicate?
I'm taking this drink to become enlightened in this life, to end all suffering. I'm by virtue of looking at this and by virtue of seeing this, may I, be able to benefit all beings. I mean, it's a simple thought. You can apply it in any way, shape, or form to anything. By virtue of walking across the street, may I become enlightened. You see what I mean?
So it's not just opening the door.
Anything, everything. It's every single, we're sort of toggling now between dedication and prayer, but they're both good.
That would turn into that would be what you're thinking all the time, and you'd be doing it.
Yeah, that would be what you become, right?
Yeah.
Something like that. Yeah, pretty good, right? These little things have profound karmic results. So, giving bread to birds can result in Buddha paradise. Tantric teachings are constantly saying that, it's just how you give a piece of bread to a bird that leads you to your paradise. So, you can't measure the virtue. So, like that. And then the world is struggling to make us think ordinary thoughts. Everything in the world is conspiring to make us think that nothing really matters, that everything is ordinary, that all that counts is what you buy and what you consume and what you have, and that there is no choice except to have an ordinary suffering life and an ordinary suffering death, and there is no other option, right? The New York Times, the magazines, everything is struggling to make you think you're a normal person, and that there's nothing special going on, and that nothing else is possible beyond the ordinary, right? And whenever whenever any kind of cool spiritual thing happens, if you go tell somebody about it, they'll be quick to debunk it. They'll say, "Oh, that was just no, that wasn't special, right?" This is the nature of our world, and that's the nature of our realm, right? I mean, the world wants you to think that magical, special, spiritual things are stupid, ordinary, insignificant things. I mean, the simple fact that we're sitting here talking about these profound things tonight is incredible. So don't let people convince you that things are normal. You're setting up your future paradise. Thinking properly and thinking holy thoughts is what's setting up your future paradise. So don't think any other way, right? Everything's empty. Every sidewalk, every building, every person, every subway, every interaction. And this is a major component of the secret teachings, and it works. See things properly, relate to things properly, engage things properly, and you create and collect this amazing, powerful karma that brings its result. So, otherwise it's just, a little bit of giving, some dirty good karma, a small result wears out. You get a sandwich, you get a milkshake, you eat it, you forget it, you don't even remember it the next day, right? So, we want to dedicate it to create paradise and move into an angel's body in this lifetime. So, Master Shantideva is adamant about starting small with the little stuff. Clean the bathroom, dedicate it to your enlightenment. So this is the thing. This is the profound teaching that we don't follow. It doesn't matter what you do. It doesn't matter if you're putting your shoes on. It doesn't matter if you're going to the toilet. I'm doing this to become enlightened. But we think
Gillette razor can make me enlightened.
If you think that way. If you don't just think, anyway, if you don't think the other thoughts, yes. Dedicate it, you say good morning to someone at work and you dedicate it to your enlightenment, right? It's not like when I get $1 million and I'm retired, then I'll do it. It's not like that, it's every moment of every day, right? Every good deed, don't hesitate, And you might be uncomfortable, people might think you're eccentric, they might think you're a little odd. Why are you so nice all the time, Why are you always thinking about paradise? Why are you don't worry about it. The world wants you to be normal and to have a normal suffering life and death, right? This is higher. And then, dedicate and rejoice, right? Even being irritated, even having an affliction, you can say, I was angry, And I dedicate being aware of my anger to getting enlightened. You know, and it doesn't matter what it is, you know. And then what? On the positive side, you understand this, and you go out and you buy the best dessert that you can get, and you sit down and you enjoy it, and you say, you know what? I'm enjoying this dessert, and I dedicate eating this and enjoying this to becoming enlightened. And you just collect more karma than you use. Right? It's a very powerful thing, right? You sit there and you enjoy it, and you understand where it came from, and you dedicate it to your enlightenment, right? I mean, what do you think Buddhists are doing in their paradise? You think they're denying themselves? They're thinking, no, I can't have good dessert. No, I mean, Buddhists, everything is perfect, utterly perfect, you know, in Buddha paradises, and they just simply perpetuate it, right? They know how to reinvest it and perpetuate it. They put more out, they create more than they consume, right? And so, you know, to what you're saying, Chris, you know, enjoy your life, live your life with gusto, nice food, nice friends, nice clothes, whatever, but dedicate it. You know, I'm enjoying my friends, I'm enjoying these beautiful clothes, you know, to get enlightened, you know, to serve all beings. And, you know, and that's the whole point, right? Is to make it something positive. And that's a big snowball. That's the whole idea. So then we get to the end of the chapter, and we go on to the 10th chapter. The 10th chapter is very, very beautiful. Master Shantideva goes through just about every kind of suffering that exists, and he prays that he could be the antidote. You know, that every pregnant woman has a smooth delivery, painless delivery, and on and on and on. And then at the end of the 10th chapter, he makes one last dedication, his final dedication at the end of the 10th chapter. And so this, you know, he's saving this for last. So it's, you know, it's the most important one. He's saved it up, and it's 2 lines of dedication. It's what he's chosen as his last point that he wants to make, in his last dedication that he wants to make, the most important thing that he wants to dedicate it to. And so he says, may these teachings stay in the world for a very long time, as they are the one and only medicine for the suffering of living beings. Okay, and that's his final dedication. These teachings are the one and only medicine for all the suffering of every being. And that's what teachings? Emptiness, goodness, virtue, love, compassion, right? Doesn't matter if you call it Buddhism, doesn't matter what you call it. The point is the meaning, the point is doing it, right? So, okay. And then, you know, it's just the principle of karma, right? It's karma and emptiness. And then he goes on further to dedicate that these ideas spread throughout the world. And he says, let me find it. He says, may these good, he's prayed that the teachings spread throughout the world, and he prays that this goodness spreads in his own heart also. So, you know, he's making a parallel there. He says, may the goodness of these teachings spread throughout my heart, and may the goodness of these teachings spread throughout the world.
Do you want the translation?
It's better.
It's the last 2 lines. It's the I prostrate to my Lama, to my root Lama.
No, we're not quite there yet. Okay. But I'll get there quickly. I think the only other thing to say about that is imagine what the world would be like if everyone lived according to these principles, right? Imagine if, just think in a practical sense, what our country would be like, what our jobs would be like, what our friendships and relationships would be like if everybody lived according to these teachings. Love and compassion for all the time. I mean, it would be paradise, right? It would be heaven on earth. So it's actually self-evident as a path in that way. I mean, it's not like we talk about verifying the teachings, right? I think, well, I can't really verify the teachings, I can't see karma, blah, blah, blah. All you have to do to verify the teachings is to ask yourself, what would my world be like right now if everybody lived like it? Yeah, it would be paradise, wouldn't it? Everybody would be compassionate and loving and understanding all the time. So I think that's all the verification you need of the teachings. Okay, then his last line, that was the last line of the dedication, and the very last line of the text, Master Shantideva says, I prostrate to my good Root Lama, requesting that all his or her goodness spread throughout my heart. I mixed it up. So he's asking, he's praying that his Lama's goodness spreads throughout his heart. Okay. So, there's a term in here, Gewe Shenyan. Gewe means goodness, and Shenyan means Root Lama. It's actually where Geshe comes from, which is basically virtuous friend. It's a shortening of it. And that's an important point to make in terms of this final dedication. This is the last word in the text. The book is extremely powerful, and these ideas can transform millions upon millions of lives and transform, the entire planet, right? But it won't work unless one finds a teacher, a heart teacher, a Root Lama, and one cannot complete the path without a Root Lama. One cannot complete the path without a spiritual teacher. There are things we simply won't do on our own. There are challenges which we won't be presented with on our own. There are places we won't go on our own. And so one needs a heart teacher, someone who we are connected to deeply, who will challenge us and push us and lead us, I want to say make us do the things that we're not inclined to do, which we must do to change our behavior and to end our afflictions and to become fully enlightened, right? I mean, in a way, they're actually dragging you to a Buddha paradise, right? And they're the one being who can really spread these things in your heart. And that's really what he's alluding to here, is this is the being who can spread these teachings through your heart and through your being in a deep and profound way. And you can't do it on your own. First of all, we don't understand it and we don't know it. It's too profound. We have brought ourselves to a place of affliction and limitation. And so it's like being lost in the desert. If you get yourself lost in the desert, can you lead yourself out of the desert? Usually not. And that's kind of our status. We have brought ourselves to this afflicted, suffering place through countless lifetimes, and we need a high, holy being to lead us out of this afflicted, suffering state. We're not going to find our way out on our own. So the point of this Root Lama, this Heart Lama, is that they have a real, true capacity, spiritual capacity to lead us out of this suffering, really, and to paradise, really. And so there's a person that fits us, and we have to find that person. You can do all the homeworks and all the quizzes and all the courses and all the readings and all the meditations, and it's not going to work without the personal teacher, without the heart teacher. And it's not possible to get to the Buddha paradise unless you find them. Which is not to say just throw yourself at someone to say, be my Lama and I'll be your student. You have to take your time. You have to check them carefully. Don't take the first one you meet. You have to check out many, many people thoroughly. You have to find the one that fits you perfectly, and when you do, you give yourself to them. There's a lot of things that we have to do, and you fight with them. You fight with them. You struggle with them. You question. It's an active process. It's an active struggle, and it's an active relationship. And they know many skillful, profound, and special ways to get us there. But once we've checked them out, and once we've decided, then we have to really go for it. We have to really commit ourselves, because the karma that we collect in doing that is what creates the teacher. As Holy Geshe Michael taught in the first 3 retreat teachings, through conventionally collecting karma, we can get a pretty good Lama. Through understanding their emptiness and how karma works, and recognizing that their faults are not self-existent, and treating them as a high holy being and a blank screen, we collect the karma and have a better Lama, and they become a better Lama, and they become more and more holy for us. And they can only become more and more holy for us if we collect the karma and create the cause, by recognizing that our karma has thus far created a pretty good Lama, whatever, and now I'm going to treat them as a holy being because they're a blank screen, because I need the karma to see them as a holy being, right? Not because it's self-existent. That's how you get a holy being. That's how you get a holy Holy Lama. And so we have to find someone that we perceive to be high enough and far enough along to engage in that process with them, right? I mean, it would be very, very rare to find someone as a human being who's a perfect lama. You know, we're very fortunate to find someone who's a very good lama, but then one has to engage with them on that level, you see, and one has to engage to collect the karma we need for them to be a better lama as a karmic result, right? So make sure they're very pure first when you're starting. You know, you don't want to start, if you're going to get all the way from 0 to 100, you don't want to start at 50. You know, you want to be closer to like 75 or 90. Because if you get someone who's like 50% there, you know, maybe they'll sleep with you for 3 years before like you work it out. You know, want somebody who's 90% there, you know, or whatever. Or maybe they'll just like treat you like crap unnecessarily for 3 years, or whatever it is. You know, I don't know. And it's not coming from them, is it? So this is why we have to be very thorough. We have to check it out, and ask other people, test them, check them, examine their behavior. You know, find them, and when you decide, then listen to them and glue yourself to them and follow what they say, because you can't. It's not possible without that, right? You know, who was Master Shantideva's lama? You know, it was Manjushri, right? I mean, he was taught by a tantric deity, and so what happens? You find someone who's a pretty good lama, and you treat them properly with correct view, and then what happens? That's like Ori Carino's painting, you know, Jason Koppel with the lady in red. I think it's out there. You know, they turn into a holy being, right? You start to see them as a tantric deity. You know, what was an ordinary being starts to turn into a tantric deity because you've actively collected the karma with them, by questioning them, by testing them, by struggling with them, with the correct view, right? So that's how it works, okay? So you'll never reach paradise unless you do that. You know, if you don't pick someone, and if you don't say, I see you as a very pure being, and I will now treat you as a blank screen, absolutely purely, to collect the karma to have that result, you'll never get the result. Impossible, right? So must find the lama, must engage them, must treat them that way. If you don't, you'll never see a tantric being, and you won't reach paradise, and you won't get enlightened. So that's how Master Shantideva ends the guide, by making the point about the importance of the Lama and the relationship with the Lama. And the Lama is responsible for spreading all the goodness of the teachings through one's heart and mind. Right? So I think that's a good place to end. So thank you. We've done a very holy, beautiful thing. Very grateful to be here. Very profound and special to have completed teaching the entire guide. We'll have the review class next week. Please do come. But in any case, let's by all means dedicate what we've done throughout this whole book.
Sashi Puki Jishin Metotram Riram Jin Body Sangye Shindu Midewargi Robin Nanda Shimla Chupasho Idam Guru Ratna Mandalakam Nyatayami Gawadi Dokun Sinam Yeshe Zoksokshin Sinam Yeshe Lejin Wei Ramba Dini Dobarsho.
By the power of having studied this holy book and these holy ideas for the last year, may we easily engage in all six perfections. May we quickly come to realization of suchness. May we completely fill our hearts with love and compassion all the time. And may we reach full paradise in this lifetime, very quickly ending all suffering everywhere.
Thank you for teaching.
Thanks.
Thank you. Josh?
Can I make an announcement? Thank you for teaching. You reminded me about something. Geshe Michael he was a great teacher and I think a qualified Lama, but John will remember he would always send us to his Lama in New Jersey, who was a very qualified Lama. Okay. One of Geshe Michael's teachers, known as Gyurme Kensei Rinpoche, will be teaching in Howell this weekend. I guess a Lamrim text called The Source of My Good, Nenten Shigyoha, which Geshe Michael translated a commentary on the shelf they call Preparing for Tantra. So that's why they're giving this weekend course, because they like to prepare people for higher studies. And Gyurme Kensei Rinpoche was the abbot of the Tantra College. Twice abbot. So this Saturday and Sunday he has classes on this subject, 10 to 12 and 2 to 4:30 both days. And it's just an hour and a half car ride or bus ride. We bought it already.
Used to do it every weekend, right?
Ken Rinpoche used to do it often, but now it's more rare, and we have a qualified Lama coming this weekend.
And he's giving tantric initiation in the summer, right?
And he will do a Tantra initiation.
August, is it?
July sometime. So anybody interested in that, you can ask me for directions. And you can come to one class or 4 classes, it doesn't matter, it's just worth it. Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
And we'll have the review next week, and then course 13 will be Tuesdays and Thursdays in July and August, starting July 16th-ish? No, July 16th. Wonder my early teachers. It gets me off the hook. Thank you.